Dragon Ball loves retcons. From Goku's sudden unveiling as an alien all the way to Daima changing up how the Pataras work for the third time, retcons are a topic the series has not been able to escape lately. But what if I told you that retcons have always been a part of Dragon Ball, since the very beginning? In fact, what if I told you that something as simple and well understood as sensu beans healing people was in fact a retcon too? Toriyama's fast and loose writing style has led to a whole boatload of those sorts of changes, many of which people don't even realize were changes to begin with. So, today I am going to dive deep in to find out not only exactly how many retcons the series has experienced over its 40 years, but also answer perhaps a far more important question. Are retcons even bad to begin with? I'm Totally Not Mark, and this is every retcon in Dragon Ball analyzed. Okay, so I know I said every retcon, but let's be honest, if I included the old movies, OVAs, and even Dragon Ball GT, this video would never ever end. So in the name of sanity, we're talking strictly mainline from chapter 1 of Dragon Ball through to Super and its subsequent films. But before I scrutinize that endless sea of content, it's important that we first define what a retcon even is, because boy does it have a bad reputation today. A retcon, or retroactive continuity, is defined by the Oxford Dictionary as a piece of new information within a fictional work that imposes a different interpretation on previously described events, typically used to facilitate a dramatic plot shift or account for an inconsistency. And that is the definition of a retcon. Not that evil, right? It's simply a new piece of info that reshapes our understanding of past events. Retroactive continuity. That's all. And so while a retcon can cause something negative like a plot hole, by itself it is neither good nor bad. It's simply a narrative technique that can stand to create drama if used thoughtfully, or frustration and confusion if handled poorly. So with all of us now on the same page, let's start where it all began. Now, hilariously, one of the first issues I ran into with this whole self-imposed retcon challenge was how I ought to identify what was a genuine retcon and what was simply a reveal. Now, to some of you, these two might appear to be the same given Toriyama is known for making up the story as he went along, but I assure you there's a difference, and it all relies on the external context of the scene in question. For instance, the reveal of Goku's great ape form was amazing, and the shedding of light on his grandpa's premature demise comes about during the climax of that first arc. Some might consider this unveiling of Goku's great ape form a retcon in the same way the unveiling of Goku's Saiyan heritage was at the beginning of Dragon Ball Z. Both are reveals, however, only one is a retcon. The knowledge that Goku possesses the ability to transform into an ape and consequently killed his grandpa is simply a reveal, because in the same instance he utters the mistruth that a monster who only appears during a full moon killed his grandpa. He's already explained that he wasn't allowed to look at the full moon. When the reveal comes around later, it's just confirming something that was earlier set up. So that makes it not a retcon, but a reveal that even characters within the world around him understood at the time. Now, on the other hand, the great ape transformation being something inherent to Saiyans is a retcon. The aspect of Goku's Saiyan reveal that makes it a retcon comes about when we learn Goku and all Saiyans can become apes. By introducing this exposition, Toriyama retroactively altered the audience's interpretation of the event, changing our understanding from this is something inherent to Goku to this is something special about Goku's race as a whole. And if I wanted to grant even more credence to this assertion, Toriyama has said in interviews that he always saw the great ape transformation as being akin to a werewolf rather than something alien. But yeah, that's a long-winded way of saying that the Great Ape reveal wasn't a retcon, but don't worry because there are plenty more actual retcons to come. And trust me, these retcons show up sooner and far more frequently than even I anticipated. Retcon number 1. The first retcon of the series might actually be as early as chapter 12 when Chi-Chi grabs Goku by the tail. By this point, Goku's been in plenty of battles and we've learned a lot about him and his tail already. It's even come up in conversation a bunch, but here Chi-Chi suddenly exposes that his tail is his weakness. This of course facilitates the resolution of the first arc's climax, but also changes what we thought we knew about his tail. Retcon number 2. In Chapter 1, Bulma confirms that she doesn't know how the balls got separated exactly, but implies that they likely got misplaced over time. This is then retconned in Chapter 20. Once the balls scatter magically, Bulma's explanation implies that she both knew this would happen and retcon number 3, that a 1-year cooldown would be placed on the Dragon Balls suddenly, turning them to stone. But there is no way someone like Bulma would know this, given that no one has made a wish on the balls in centuries. And oh yeah, number 4, the balls turning to stone is also a retcon. Wow, 3 retcons in one chapter. Will this record be topped? Stay tuned. And this retcon impacts the Dragon Radar. Toriyama was hell-bent on avoiding another Dragon Ball search no matter what, and so he turned them to stone, making them not only unusable, but also undetectable apparently. These are clunky retcons, of course, but given the direction the series ended up pivoting to, it was so worth it. Number 5, in the interest of not only picking on Shenlong for the entire video, let's talk about Goku's Power Pole, or Nyoibo, for a second. Introduced in Chapter 1 as a mysterious magical staff handed down to him by his grandpa, with the power to extend apparently, it is eventually retconned at the end of the King Piccolo arc in Chapter 162, with its true purpose retconned to be a connection between Karin's Tower and the lookout itself. This retroactively changes its importance, of course, but it also makes it funnier that Roshi used it as a clothesline for what I can only assume was decades. Good retcon and great gag material. Retcon number 6, back to the Dragon Radar from Chapter 1 through to 69 I guess. The radar is shown to have a tremendous range but becomes more limited in use up close. I mean, this is pretty much why they had to explore in the first place. However, in Chapter 75, while Bulma is running around a Red Ribbon Army base, the radar suddenly possesses the ability to locate the exact position of the Dragon Ball and even shows the directions to it through the different man-made hallways. We've seen close-ups of the radar before, we've even seen her use paper maps plenty. This is, I think, the first bad retcon on my list, but largely inoffensive. Retcon number 7. Introduced in Chapter 88 of the manga after Goku scales Karin's Tower, the senzu beans were initially described as being able to keep someone full for 10 days. However, in Chapter 150, that is retconned into healing Goku's entire battered body. Part of me believes that this change emerged in early Dragon Ball because Goku's strength was largely linked to how hungry he was in early Dragon Ball, and so, when the story became more serious and Goku's body started to rely more on chi and less on food, senzu beans too made that retroactive switch to retain their function. It's clunky, but it's a reasonable retcon in my view. Retcon number 8. In Chapter 2, Goku tells Bulma that he's 14 years of age. But in Chapter 41, that is retconned after he defeats Girin, not to be confused with the more boring one. In this, his age is changed to 12, possibly because the manga was proving successful at the time and they wanted to keep him in the age range for the target audience. This is neither good or a bad retcon, it's just a retcon. Number 9, also retconned during the early tournament, is the announcer's duties specifically. In the 21st Tenkaichi Budokai, he's strictly an announcer, all the while the head priest was tasked with making the actual rule calls during matches. However, in subsequent world tournaments, the announcer takes over that role. Number 10. In Chapter 4, Kintuun is introduced as a magical gift from Roshi, and in Chapter 14, he claims to have gotten it straight from Kami-sama himself. While it is confirmed that Roshi did make it to the top of Karin Tower, and that is in keeping with his character's legendary history, he specifically did not make it to the lookout to see Kami-sama, and so never received Kintuun from him. Number 11. In the King Piccolo arc, Kintuun is destroyed, or killed, however you want to look at it, by Tambourine. However, later, Karin reveals that what Goku was riding was only a fragment of a much larger magical cloud atop Karin Tower? Okay. Number 12. This also retcons Kintuun's supposed death entirely. Number 13. Continuing my picking on Kintuun, in Chapter 162 it is said that it cannot fly any higher than Karin Tower, retroactively limiting its flight capacity. Number 14. In Chapter 97, Bulma places another restriction on the Dragon Radar, citing that if a Dragon Ball were to be, swallowed, the biological matter surrounding the ball would prevent the radio waves emitting from being picked up, which, let's be honest, doesn't make a lot of sense. And number 15. The fact that she described the waves the Dragon Balls emit as radio waves is also a retcon. In Chapter 1, she refers to the waves as electromagnetic, which, according to Google, are similar but distinctly different. Number 16. In Chapter 92, after Goku kicks his grenade back into his face, Tao Pai Pai is shown to have, exploded. We see the explosion, and as the cloud fades, his body seems to have been reduced to dust. However, in Chapter 167, Cyborg Tao is revealed. Yay! Retroactively negating his death. Number 17. This one is weird, but hang in with me. In chapter 1, Goku says to Bulma that he's, quote, never seen another human before. However, in that same chapter, and even that same page really, he confirms that he lived in this small house with his grandpa Gohan. We're given reason to believe that he's human throughout the arc, but there's also plenty of evidence of other sentient life in this story too. We're also never shown confirmation of what he in fact looks like, so when chapter 105 through to his eventual reveal in chapter 108 arises, it is confirmed that he is in fact human and that what Goku said in chapter 1 was incorrect. Hilariously, Toriyama even admits that this was a mistake when answering fan questions at the end of Volume 2. Technically, this is a retcon, albeit an unintentional one. Number 18. In chapter 107, the Pilaf gang produces a special Dragon Ball container that can prevent the Dragon Radar from locating it. I guess it's made of that biological material, I don't know. Number 19. In chapter 97, Roshi describes Baba as an all-seeing crony that has the power to divine the location of any lost object. However, that is later retconned to also include seeing the future. Number 20. In chapter 150, the Ultra Divine Water is introduced as a secret second type of water Karin Tower offers, apparently. A retcon that Toriyama added as a means of increasing Goku's strength to defeat Demon King Piccolo in a short amount of time. Thanks, I hate it. Number 21. Let's pick on Shenlong some more. In chapter 111, summoning Shenlong is shown to turn day into night. This had never been established before and was likely introduced so that when villains would use the Dragon Balls in the future, Goku and those around him would be clued into what's going on. Number 22. And speaking of King Piccolo, he can clone himself apparently, as an egg after Goku defeats him, which subsequently births Little Piccolo, or Piccolo Jr. as he's later called. Number 23. Once this arc concludes, however, it's revealed that not only did the Dragon Balls have a creator in Kami, which in and of itself is a significant retcon, but also, number 24, this creator too is God, and more than that, number 25, is one half of the greatest villain this story had seen up until this point. Number 26, Kami possesses the ability to circumvent the 1-year mandatory cooldown of the Dragon Balls, which, as I said at the very beginning, was also a retconned rule, so this is a retcon of a retcon? Funny how it also is super similar to what Neba did in the first episode of Dragon Ball Daima. I never noticed that until now. Number 27, rewinding the clock a smidgen, in chapter 120 during the 22nd Tenkaichi Budokai, Tao Pai Pai is revealed to be Tsuru Senin's younger brother, which, given the age disparity and the fact that Tsuru Senin is over 300 years of age, I feel like this couldn't have been planned exactly. Number 28, in chapter 165, Kami says, no god is given the power to destroy himself, end quote. However, in chapter 194, he tries to kill Piccolo and therefore himself. Number 29. In chapter 193, Piccolo remarks that Goku has been blasted to atoms and therefore even Shenlong cannot restore him, which is another retroactive limiter on the Dragon Balls themselves. Number 30. From chapters 185 through to 194, characters like Krillin, Goku, Piccolo, and even Kami suggest and state that using the Dragon Balls to revive Kami after Goku kills Piccolo is a viable option. However, in chapter 194, Goku tells Kami that he's lying and that if he were to die, so too would the Dragon Balls disappear. I mean, he says this despite agreeing with Krillin's plan and acting on his suggestion in the prior circumstance. This is just Toriyama retroactively adding this restriction to the Dragon Balls. And now, onwards and upwards to Dragon Ball Z. In chapter 1 of DBZ, Raditz reveals that Goku's real name is Kakarott. Number 32. He also reveals that his original mission was to kill all the inhabitants of planet Earth. Number 33. The third and final retcon of this chapter is the reveal that Goku belongs to a race of aliens called Saiyans. Number 34. In chapter 2 of Dragon Ball Z, Goku is revealed to have an older brother. Number 35. Also in this chapter, Goku's scar and Roshi's exposition explains that Goku suffered memory loss or brain damage as a baby after Gohan found him, thus forgetting his mission. Number 36. Prior to fighting Raditz in the early chapters of Dragon Ball Z, Goku explains another restriction on the Dragon Balls themselves, that they cannot grant the same wish more than once. We're really getting far from that any wish you want kind of shenanigans that was in the first arc of the series. Number 37. Also in chapter 11, the retroactive inclusion of the Otherworld hierarchy, I guess. We once thought that Kami was the top. Now he's simply an intermediary between the mortal world and this new thing. Number 38. In chapter 162, Karin says that the souls of those killed by demons cannot ascend to the afterlife. However, in Dragon Ball Z chapter 11, it's revealed that Raditz did in fact make it to Enma's desk. Number 39. In Chapter 18, Shenlong remarks that he cannot defeat the Saiyans by wish, as he cannot grant a wish that surpasses the power of a god. Add another limiter to the Dragon Balls, I guess. Number 40. In Dragon Ball Z Chapter 20, Piccolo and Kami are retconned to be aliens, specifically Namekians. Number 41. Goku's internal desire for combat and competition is retroactively attributed to his Saiyan genetics. Number 42. Oh, I actually forgot to mention that there's actually another limitation stacked on the Earth's Dragon Balls, in that in order to bring someone back to life, they also need to have their bodies preserved. Number 43. In Chapter 49, King Kai states that the Namekians are a most peaceful race, and so retroactively attributes Piccolo's demonic ways to the maliciousness of humans on Earth. Number 44. In Chapter 3, Raditz says that the Saiyan homeworld was destroyed by a meteor. However, this is later retconned, and Frieza is given the blame in Chapter 63, which brings me to number 45. In Chapter 52, Frieza's name is mentioned for the very first time, and it is my belief that he too was perhaps a retcon. So let's review the evidence. The cause of Planet Vegeta's destruction was retroactively attributed to him. Originally it was a meteor. Vegeta refers to himself once as the strongest in the universe during his fight with Goku, and perhaps most convincingly, in Chapter 52, Kyuubi reveals to Vegeta that Frieza listened to their scouter to hear about the Dragon Balls and their power. But here's the thing, Vegeta and Nappa didn't talk about the Dragon Balls on Earth only. They did so a year earlier after Raditz was defeated. How? By hearing the information through their scouters. Given all of what I just said, I think it's reasonable to assert that Frieza could have been a retcon at the very least. Number 46. In Chapter 63, it's retconned that Saiyans get stronger after every fight. The greater the fight, the greater the increase in strength, apparently. Number 47. Also in this chapter, Dodoria refers to Vegeta as a Saiyan prince for the first time. In the original manga, during the Saiyan arc, Vegeta not once refers to himself as a prince. He describes himself as an elite warrior, with no connection to princehood. Number 48. In Chapter 63, Dodoria explains that Frieza's eradication of the Saiyans occurred due to a fear that they would unite against him. This is reinforced in Chapter 68 by Zarbon. It's even specifically said that, and I quote, "The strength of individual Saiyans is no match for Master Frieza," end quote. This is later retconned once Toriyama decided to introduce the legend of the Super Saiyan as Frieza's primary fear in Chapter 114. Number 49. The possibility of a legendary Super Saiyan transformation is retconned into the story in Dragon Ball Z Chapter 71 by Frieza. There is technically a mention of a Super Saiyan by Nappa en route to Earth, but that's a passing adjective used to describe the hybrid of a human and a Saiyan in Gohan. It doesn't bear any relation to the actual transformation that it eventually becomes attributed to. Number 50. In Chapter 63, it was said that Saiyans increase in strength after every fight. However, in Chapter 74, it is retconned to specifically refer to when a Saiyan recovers from the brink of death, meaning that they do not need to fight in order to increase their strength. This is what allows Goku to dramatically increase his power using senzu beans en route to Namek, and it's how Vegeta was able to, get a hole in his chest and then get super strong against Frieza for, their first round. Number 51. In Chapter 135, it is shown that if a dragon chooses, it can combine a bunch of extra wishes to satisfy the conditions of the initial request. Isn't that nice? Number 52. Someone can refuse to be transported via a wish if they so chose. Number 53. Vegeta and Bulma have a son. Just kidding, that's not retroactive continuity, it's proactive continuity, I don't know, he's from the future. The actual retcon here comes from Chapter 141 when Trunks mentions that the androids attacking his world are called androids 19 and 20. However, this is later changed to androids 17 and 18 when he returns to his timeline at the end of the arc. And speaking of which, the shift from 17 to 18 to Cell was also a retcon brought on by editorial suggestion. And apparently Kami had suspected something was up for the last 4 years too. Number 55. Another restriction on the Dragon Balls is introduced when Piccolo fuses with Kami, thus causing the Dragon Balls to turn to rocks. Number 56. In Chapter 169, Cell reveals that even though Dr. Giro's lab was destroyed, there was more to it underneath that they never noticed. Number 57. In Chapter 172, Goku reveals the Room of Spirit and Time and explains he's even trained in there for a month during his childhood. Number 58. In Chapter 196, a restriction is placed on the Room of Spirit and Time. One can only stay in there a total of 2 days within your lifetime. Number 59. In Chapter 195, Cell reveals that his Cell games will commence 9 days following his announcement on May 17th. However, this is impossible as, according to Trunks in Chapter 141, the androids were to arrive on May 12th, thus making this actually impossible. Years later, when piecing together their timeline for Daizenshu 7, the date of the Cell games was actually changed to May 26th. Number 60. Cell's healing ability supposedly being derived from Piccolo's DNA. Piccolo can regenerate limbs and less intense stuff like that, but he absolutely cannot regenerate from being atomized. And actually, you know what? Come to think of it, number 61. Demon King Piccolo couldn't regenerate either. He had a damn hole in his stomach and he didn't regenerate dick. Number 62. In chapter 224, Shenlong says that they cannot change the androids back into humans because, quote, their powers are too great and strange. My own powers cannot affect such creatures against their will, end quote. So I guess that's another limiting factor in addition to all the other ones on the Dragon Balls. Number 63. Vegeta agrees to participate in the World Tournament during the Buu Saga because Gohan signed up. However, he later claims that the only reason he entered was to fight Goku. Number 64. In Chapter 11, the Guide to Snake Way describes King Kai to Goku as someone that stands above all the gods in the universe. However, once Shin arrives, that order is retroactively changed. Number 65. Majin Buu is said to have existed since time immemorial. However, Buu is later retconned into being a creation of Bibidi. Number 66. In Chapter 234, King Kai is retconned into being the North Kai, making him one of 4. Number 67. In Chapter 270, Piccolo claims that he can regenerate without issue as long as his head remains intact. However, Cell's regeneration against Goku suggested that such headless regeneration was possible using Piccolo's cells. Number 68. In Chapter 275, another rule is imposed on the Dragon Balls. If only one of the 3 wishes is made and the dragon is dismissed, then the recharge time is only 4 months. Meaning each wish is worth 4 months of recharge time. Number 69. In Chapter 280, it is revealed that the use of Super Saiyan 3 is a drain on the remaining time Goku has on Earth. However, when this mechanic was first introduced with Grandpa Gohan, there was no mention of energy output draining the remaining time. Number 70. In Chapter 183, once Goku and Gohan enter the Room of Spirit and Time, Goku says that once the door closes, everything outside is shut out. However, in Chapter 295, Piccolo is able to communicate from the outside to Goten and Trunks on the inside. Number 71. In Chapter 196, Popo states that if the exit disappears, you are stuck in the Room of Spirit and Time forever. However, using their power and, well, voices, both Buu as well as Gotenks circumvent that claim. Number 72. At the end of Chapter 17, the Earth can be seen from space. You can see Australia, Papua New Guinea, Indonesia, India, Sri Lanka, as well as East Asia and the entire Indian Ocean. It is geographically accurate to Earth as it exists in the real world. However, in Chapter 319, you can clearly see Toriyama decided to draw his own version of Earth instead. And finally, number 73, one that I forgot to mention earlier, Dr. Gero is retroactively made the mastermind behind the androids in the Red Ribbon Army arc. Whew, okay. Now, that brings me to the end of the retcons that I'm fairly certain about. Now it's time for the ones that I am a little more or a lot more unsure of. So let's continue. Number 74. In Chapter 264, Goku tells Vegeta that in order to avoid receiving damage that will awaken Majin Buu, he will be trying to end this fight quickly at full power. Also in Chapter 275, he goes on to reinforce that very statement when he says that Vegeta was as strong as he was. However, later this is revealed to have been a bold-faced lie and that Goku is much, much stronger than that which he had continuously claimed to be. My guess is that by this point in the story, Toriyama was really flying by the seat of his pants, and I wouldn't be surprised if Super Saiyan 3 retconned this initial claim by Goku. Number 75. Initially, the Nyoibo, or the power pole, is the only way for anyone to try and make their way up to the lookout. If one used a rocket or propulsion device, it is said that they would be repelled away. However, during Dragon Ball Z Cell Saga, Bulma makes her way up there fine using a flying craft. There are excuses for this, however. Kami had died and Nyoibo had technically been connected all this time too. So there's deniability for sure, however, it is never specified specifically. Number 76. Super Saiyan was an arduous achievement for Goku, Vegeta, and Gohan, but Goten manages to achieve it like it's no big deal suddenly. I don't know whether to call this a retcon or not, but it certainly operates in a nebulous space for me at least. And finally, number 77. In Chapter 307, Old Kai says that the Potara earrings cause permanent fusion. However, that statement is later proven not to be the case when Vegito unfuses within Majin Buu. The only reason I hesitate to call this a retcon is because Boo is, well, literally magic and always has been an unknown quantity practically by definition. And also, they kind of unfused immediately after that rule was first introduced. If we counted all the times Majin Buu managed to contradict previously held rules, this list would be twice as long and way less interesting. And that's it. That's my list of Dragon Ball's retcons, or at least the ones that I could find in the classic material. However, as many of you are very well aware of at this point, I imagine, the series did continue into the modern era with the advent of Battle of Gods, Resurrection F, Dragon Ball Super, and so on. So make sure to subscribe and tune in next Saturday when I outline all of the retcons in modern Dragon Ball 2. That one is going to be crazy, but until then, I've been Totally Not Mark, and thank you all so much for watching.